Welcome, everybody, to our March 9th Town Hall. You're joined here with all of us from ATG. We're going to talk about an interesting topic today. We're talking about the Great Resignation, also known as the Great Reset, or the Great, what we called this earlier, the Great
Negotiation.
Renegotiation. There you go. It comes from a lot of different names, and you're probably not a stranger to it. And what we want to do is have an open conversation about what this means to our industry. Right? All of us here at ATG represent the AEC industry, architecture, engineering, construction, and all the little counterparts like MEP and reality capture. So what we want to do is have an open conversation, and I'm joined with my colleagues here. We're going to have some things. We're going to have some poll questions for you in the audience, and I would like you to tune into the chat and have any questions that you would like to have answered, put it up in the Q&A panel. And we'll be having an open conversation about what this means for our industry. So with that, we're going to launch the first poll question, which is what industry do you come from? And as we're letting that go, we're going to go ahead and do our introductions. I'll start with Rob Bigelow. Rob, how long have you been in this industry, and what do you do here at ATG?
Yep, so I've been on this side, on the reseller side, for about 5 years, and before that, about 20 years in the industry. And that's been everywhere from land development to GIS, working in that space for a while, mining. So I got to see a lot of the industry on the AEC side. And yeah, about 20 years before that. So about 25 years total.
What about you, Terry?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So I've been in the industry for about 27 years, on the reseller side for just a couple years. Been involved in Autodesk and Esri products from the get-go. So a lot of experience on the civil infrastructure, traffic, even site design side.
How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Been on this side, industry-wise, for 20 years. Been with ATG for about 2. Civil production lead here, so it's responsible for all the production side on this team. And yeah, everything from residential to some traffic work and some site grading and GIS work. So.
And last but not least, how about you, James?
Thanks, Jason. I've been with ATG for 10 years. I'm an account executive in business development role, but actually I've been in the industry for about 22 years, primarily on that business development side and also account management. So talked to a lot of different people, lots of great conversations over the years, and just excited to just be a part of this conversation we're having today and just kind of share some of my knowledge and hear from you guys as well.
And Jason, what about you?
Thanks, Rob. I've been in the industry for about 25 years. I've been with ATG for about 3.5 years now. Recently moved to a technical sales role, so I help our civil customers with production and consulting needs. But that's not why we're here today. We're bringing all of our industry experience. So here on our ATG side, we're represented by over 100 years of experience in these fields, and we're seeing some interesting times. And a lot of our conversation here is based upon some trends, right? According to JobList, their 2022 job market trends report says that 3 out of 4 full-time employees are planning to quit their job this year. And that's scary, right? But usually when people quit their jobs, it's a sign of optimism. Why? There must be something better, some greener grass somewhere else. What's fueling that? And of course of that, another stat is that 79% of employed job seekers believe that they can make more money by switching jobs, if that's even a different role entirely or in a different field. So what we want to do is just have a conversation about, is this a trend? Is this going to go away soon? What's fueling this? So with that, for those who've been in the industry for a while, I'm going to go ahead and end this poll.
Yeah, let me just I did want to welcome a couple MEP people in here. 14% of us are MEP, and it's a good split between architectural and civil. So this is good to see a wide variety here.
Yeah, all sorts of folks. Thanks for participating. We'll have some more poll questions as we go, so stay tuned. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share those results. Yeah, 70 or 42% civil, got some 28% architectural, and then MEP and construction. For those who are in the other category, put that in the chat. Curious to see where you're all coming from. Now, with that, I'm going to go ahead and let this go. So with this great resignation, again, I want to spin this positively, right? This usually means that there's an opportunity for us, whether you're looking for a new role or you're looking for a different challenge. But why we have this team of folks here on the call is to talk about what we see, right? We deal with firms all across the country, and we're seeing folks, struggling to find people. We see people turning away work because they don't have the staffing. And this is sort of a really bad time, right? There's $1.2 trillion out there in this infrastructure bill that was signed last fall. And this infrastructure bill has things from cleaner drinking water to electric vehicle charging stations, to better high-speed internet, and all of the fixing all the poor bridges in the United States. Our nation needs this investment, but for a lot of us, this is going to be hard to do, right? On the civil side of things, we've got the infrastructure needs, obviously, and then there's going to be the architectural, MEP. All of our industry will be impacted by this. That's why we're having this conversation here. Is it about money? Is it about challenge? What sort of things are you seeing out there? So I'm going to pitch this over to Terry here. So we're talking about the Great Resignation and what does the market look like? What sort of trends are you seeing, Terry, when it comes to our customers?
Yeah, thanks. Really, it's a lot of training and efficiency needs. So how can we knock out these projects, make money off them, and do them efficiently? So what we're seeing is a lot of template builds coming in, CAD management, creating ways to reuse or even have a great start on these projects. And so with that, there's been a lot of just training. We've seen people come and go, and as far as leaving the roles, and we're looking at clients that are looking to be having their group more rounded, more developed. So certain people aren't just doing one type of design work. They're more diverse.
Part of this is, the pandemic has had a role. Some people have decided they don't want to be in the workforce anymore. So it's not just about quitting to find more money somewhere else. It's just people found it a good time to leave. And what we've seen is that this means some of the folks like us, who have been in the industry for a long time, have decided to walk away. And that leaves a big hole because a lot of these folks served in more than one role at their organization. So instead of looking at replacing one-to-one, you're looking at two or more people to do the work of one who had all of that experience. Now, with that, Jeff, what have you seen on your side of things?
Yeah, on the production side, we've seen where people just can't keep up. So they don't either have the manpower to do the production work and they're actually turning projects down, or the staff might need a little bit more training and they just need some help getting that across their project across the timeline while they train people internally as well. So they look for us to come in and help out, or somebody else, and try to help them relieve that stress. And also, I've heard this by numerous people saying, hey, I'm just working around the clock. I can't keep up. And they're, especially like us, like you said, we're going to burn out. So they need to relieve that stress somehow.
Doubt. Let's launch our second poll question, and we're going to see if this trend, you think it's temporary or is it here to stay? And while we have the poll up there, I want to ask James, because James talks to a lot of different customers that are outside of the folks that the rest of us normally talk to. What are you seeing out there, James?
Well, guys, is a little bit of a different conversation than what you guys are experiencing. I think, pre or post, I would say, post-pandemic, people got used to working in a certain type of atmosphere or a certain type of environment. But now we've had to pivot a little bit and be more present, because now work is also involved with family. So, the folks I'm talking to is it's a big balance. It was how can I be productive, but also still be present with family and some of the duties I had to do over that 1.5 2 year span when everyone in the world went remote. And so, you know, those are the conversations I'm having. And believe it or not, I mean, folks are finding that balance and to be able to do both, and they feel like they're being more productive. But I think that's all starting because of the culture of the leadership of the organizations is allowing them to kind of change or pivot it and kind of be in this new role where they can kind of serve both. And so that's been, again, a more of a, you know, a majority of the conversations I'm having around just not the business side, but just how do I be productive in my company? How can I still be the best employee? But also, how can I still do the responsibilities that I've been doing with my family, whether it's dropping my kid off at school, whether it's, you know, picking them up, or just being present when they're around, because believe it or not, some folks are still working remote. Some kids are still going to school online. Everyone's not necessarily back full time. So it's been a huge balance, but lots of success. But like I said, it's been a cultural change from the leadership perspective, at least what I'm hearing, that's allowing them to do that. Then of course there's some companies that's not, and that's a completely different conversation. And I think those are those customers or those individuals that we're seeing that wants to leave their job because they're looking for that. They're looking for some more flexibility so they can try to do both and still be successful.
That's a
James,
great
you-
point, James.
Yeah, sorry, Jason, go ahead.
I was just going to mention that we'll be talking about culture a little bit later on, because that does play a big part of it. And some of the things that we've seen, you know, in the news, like what's happened with Better.com and some of those other firms who just don't seem to respect their employees. There's no other way to sugarcoat that. But I'd like to hear from some of you on the chat and who are participating. What sort of cool things has your firm done for culture? And as we're going to talk about that, I want to talk to Rob here and see, you know, as a whole here at ATG, what sort of stuff are you seeing a trend in with what we do here at ATG?
Yeah, you bet. So we've seen a big uptick on just people needing help, getting projects out the door. Either they lost somebody very valuable and lost a good skill set with that, where they still have the projects, it doesn't go away. So what I see a lot more is you do a lot more with less. And it's that's where we can come in and certainly help them out, but it's certainly an uptick that we see. And one other thing that we see is a lot of training that comes on board too, because what happens is you lose a really good skill set, you know, in this, a CAD manager or somebody ends up going somewhere else, and now that skill set's gone, where now you got to train them again. And we get a big uptick on that too, where people are looking to learn to train a lot of the staff. So we've seen an increase on both of those.
Interesting. So I'm going to share the poll results here. Do we think this is a temporary trend? And 83% of you participated, and we've got 69% that says no, right? So if this isn't temporary, how are we going to deal with this? What are we going to do? How do we continue to get that work done? So Jeff, what are your thoughts on all of this?
So I think as far as it here to stay and stuff, I think it will not. I think it will eventually leave over time, but it's not going to be this year. It might not be next year, but eventually you're going to start seeing people, you know, get settled back into a more appreciative job if that's what they are striving for. And I think as long as, and I hate to say this wrong, but I think as long as the companies themselves and employees have good communication, people know what they're wanting out of it, they're going to be able to stay for a while at that company. Like whether it's, hey, I want education, more education to help get more experience and be that situation smarter. And then also, hey, my time is more flexible. I found out during this whole thing that I actually like my kids and I want to hang out with them a little bit more and take them to school, pick them up, go to ball games, and then come back and work in the evening if that's what works for me. So something like that, I think, is a good balance on all that.
That's a great point, Jeff. And I think a lot of us have had to do some soul searching during this pandemic to find out what is important to us. Unfortunately, a lot of us, due to the pandemic, had lost family members or friends or clients or customers, people that we knew. And, those folks no longer have that ability to spend the time with their children, right? So maybe it's made all of us, I know myself included, look inward and find the things that are more important, like helping with homework and just being there and dropping your kids off.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
And
James.
Jason,
No, I was just gonna say that's that present thing I was talking about. And now as I'm looking in the chat, I'm seeing a lot of, just some consistent conversation. Now I see the word flexibility being used a lot, but one of you guys want to take a look at some of the things that's coming in. But it's pretty interesting to see, what's happening across the board and the consistency in what people are doing. And then like I think Chris or someone else or Jose mentioned, those companies aren't being flexible and their employees are leaving because that other company is. So, as you started the conversation, Jason, just a lot of, pivoting and trying to figure out what that balance is. And people are looking for that so they can continue to do what they were doing. But I was just looking at the chat, just wanted to bring that up.
yeah, I was looking in
Yep.
there too. I wanted to bring that up. Jennifer made a good point there. How do you encourage training when everyone is so busy and they don't feel they have the time for training? I think Nick had a good response to that there. Nick Deegan there, but as a CAD manager trainer, I think the encouragement has to come from management, making the investment in the staff. Managers have to give staff time to train and not just on their own time. Maybe we could bring that up real quick. Terry, can you possibly add to that? Like that's a good question. Right
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. Retention, having professional development, having a pathway for our coworkers to travel along. So they're, having that professional development in place, being able to take time to train your staff, and really, a more well-rounded group. So if somebody does leave, you have other people to rely on, and I think that also plays into just a team building and camaraderie, and being able to develop a team and approach where somebody's not kind of pigeonholed to do the same thing over. And so I think that with the training and being able to spend time with training, or being able to train your staff and not just billable work and getting projects done. So it is a trend that we've seen quite a bit in our industry, where people are so busy that they don't have that time to train. But in order to retain staff, I think just having a pathway for professional development is a big key to that as well.
Yeah, and I can just add to that real quick what we've done for our team, because we run into the same thing. We're just busy all the time. It's like, where do you have time for training? We've tried to block out, some time on Fridays, 4-hour block time just to learn from each other, mentor from each other, but also if you want to do self-study, pick up something there, just wherever we can squeeze that time in, because we know it's important on this end.
Right. And to be fair, that same comment about being too busy for training, we could have mentioned that 10 years ago too, right? That theme has been consistent in this industry. And I think with these changes to our environment, it's become more of a thing. So whether you're taking that time to learn, well, if you have that time to learn. With that, we'll launch our third poll question. Has your workload really increased due to these staffing issues? Are you working harder because you're short-staffed? Are you staying the same? Is it sort of a balance? Is everything new? The chart so far is very skewed to the yes side of things.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I would lean toward most of it, from what I've seen on the production side, at least. So this is
Yeah,
right what I
interesting.
expect. So
Yeah.
Okay. So
84%.
yeah, pretty crazy. I'll put the comments up there. 84% says yes. So how do we handle this extra workload, right? So when we're talking about what we do and what most of us do on this call is that we've got designers and drafters and we've got this work that needs to be done. So how do we handle that extra workload when we can't find a replacement quick enough? Jeff, What are you seeing?
Honestly, people reach out to us. I mean, we're here to help. As I say, we're an extension of people's teams, right? We're here to do their project using their CAD standards and workflow and knock it out, right? So they hire somebody, not just us, but other people, and they can get the job done. There's a couple of different balances to that. There's overseas help, there's local help. Overseas, yeah, you're going to pay a lot less and you're going to get the job done, but is it going to be as accurate? Is it going to be as clean? Local, you get more experienced people in there and you can knock that job out. And then of course, with us, we give that value added where we'll come in and help them, and we have that QA QC process before we give it back to them. So there's different ways to help, our clients and other clients to staff up their team. And then also at the same time, they can also use that, rely on us to help our any source, and then get training internally to help increase them. So that's a good balance there to fill that gap. So.
And I would just add to that it's not necessarily just us. If you find someone to help you out, don't lose the quality. I think you're gonna regret that if you go with somebody that you will lose the quality, or the time gap might be a difference, or just look for things like that where it's not going to actually cause more work and more grief for you.
Right. So we're looking at, one response to that. How do you handle that extra workload when you can't find the staff? Is you either say, no, I can't handle the work, and you're turning away that revenue, which nobody likes to do, but it's happening. Or you look at outsourcing if you can't hire enough. Now, an option instead of outsourcing would be doing stuff internally, as Jeff mentioned. And I'll turn it over to Terry here. When it comes to training, have you seen an uptick in response to this?
Yeah, it's absolutely. We have, and so there's a couple comments on the forum here on the chat that the new folks coming in and getting them trained. So we're seeing a lot of younger staff, or maybe taking on new roles that are invested in training, but also we're seeing a lot of different types of training, whether it's in InfraWorks, whether it's in Civil 3D, and just basic AutoCAD. So there's been quite a bit of broad range of the training types, and I think that investment that we're seeing within the industry has been kind of all over the board, from young, new people coming on, and people have been in the industry for quite a while, and just more focused training. So.
There's been two really good things on the chat, Jason. I don't know if you saw this, but Robert mentioned.
I was just going to say that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We must take the time to sharpen our saws and painfully stick to the 80-20 rule. 80% of the results come from 20% of the effort. I think that's spot on. So we need to increase, but how are we going to find the time to increase it? So.
Right. And that comes from skills, right? We get better. Either we get better focused, and part of that is culture related, right? If you feel driven to do work, you're going to work better, plain and simple. And then if you have the right tools for the job, a faster computer, the training, what buttons to hit and when to hit them. And that's the thing that has been a struggle. I mean, through all types of things. Very interesting stuff. And John, good to see you in the chat here too, buddy.
Yeah, name too.
Great comment here. And I've wondered this myself. So John says that one of the difficulties that seems to be the lack of new qualified candidates entering the industry. Is anybody engaged in or aware of efforts to help colleges and universities add degrees in our fields? Now, I'll speak from experience. I've worked with a local technical college with their drafting and design program and what that outline looks like. And there's really not a whole lot of civil presence, right? They're more manufacturing and mechanical minded. And finding, tech schools or local schools that teach Civil 3D is really hard to find. Teaching MicroStation, forget about it. It's almost impossible. So how are we going to get people interested in this industry so we don't have to have this conversation again in 25 years because our graduates aren't learning, or they don't, they're not aware of what we do. So it's very interesting. I do know that they do exist, but it's not nearly as common as some other trades.
Jennifer just says she serves on a local technical college advisory board. I wonder how she is increasing that awareness and trying to get people to buy in on civil side. Jennifer?
Right. Same thing. And that's similar to the role that I had with our local school is get on that advisory board and recommend civil, or say, you know, if you're a large employer, reach out and say, hey, by the way, in case you weren't aware, we have a big need for people. Do you have this? And it all comes from demand. You know, once we let the industry know, or the instructors know, that civil is a need, or architectural, or MEP, or whatever else that we're doing, they can be better prepared to change their outlines accordingly. So some great comments coming in through the chat there. So we talked about our one of our first or second polls there, about that we know that this is real. It's not going to go away anytime soon. We've talked about training. We've talked about outsourcing. How do we turn this great resignation into the great opportunity, right? Again, we want to come away from this positively. So Jeff, when it comes to retention, what can firms do to retain people? Is it going to be more than just sweatpants and dogs at work and a 5% pay raise?
Absolutely. I mean, if they're willing to give you a big pay raise now, why didn't they do it before? You know, that's always the question. And then will they do it the following year? But to help with retention, what about helping with get to know the person? I mean, go invest, see what they're doing, see what they like, see what their hobbies are. Just get to know them a little bit better. Maybe some of the benefits package, you know, vacation time, that flexibility of being able to work from home when needed, or remote. Maybe it's even going to the local sports basketball team, like the Pacers. They're good. So maybe get a group of people to go. No, they're not.
Well,
Yeah, they suck. Don't do that. But you know, get group of coworkers together and go hang out for a little bit. Something to help keep them wanting to come back. You know, and I think that would probably be good for the retention part. You know, invest in them.
Okay. What about recruitment? What do you think, Terry? What can we do for recruiting to show that culture and show that workers matter?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, I like to piggyback off of Jeff's comment as well, as far as retention goes. You know, being in the industry, being able, just leadership training, personality tests, how you engage your staff, and you know, people react differently in certain situations, and building that camaraderie is, I think, is very important. Making feel people part of the team. So when we do projects, it's not feeling isolated. This is mine. This is my whole task. I need to get it done. We want to have that flexibility, so people are being supported. People are feeling that they can rely on others, and I think it's just a trait that we tend to overlook sometimes, because it's not all about being profitable and getting things done. We really need to look at our staff, and I think with just the basic leadership skills and how we engage folks, it's definitely pretty important.
Hey, Jason, I want to add another thing too, is just how are we hiring, right? I think it's important to and everyone on this call can testament to this, is that pre-pandemic, when we put our resumes or we put our job descriptions out there, we were hiring for that office or that location. Post-pandemic, now it's one word that was never used before this: remote workforce, remotely. Customers and our people we're working with are hiring outside of those offices. We're all in Phoenix, you're in North Fargo. I mean, now you can put descriptions out there. You don't have to be where that office is located at. You now can find talent in other places that you wasn't looking before. So I think it's important for us to definitely understand that the way the hiring process was happening before, it's major. Because if you are still that company that doesn't have remote work in your description, you're probably not going to get a lot of hits. Because that flexibility is become as important of that dollar amount. I mean, it truly is.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's something that we have to all recognize as all our industries, and understand if we are having an issue finding talent, what does that job description look like we have out there on the post? What is those buzzwords that people are looking for? Are we set up to work with set an employee up that maybe is not at a location where our office, that home office at? Are we in a position to set them up where they can work remote and still add value to our company and be productive? I think Nick has a great question in chat. I was just looking at specifically about working remote as a default. And I think one of you guys definitely when we want to look at that and try to address it. But again, I'm just looking at from an account management standpoint and how the people I'm conversating with, how are they getting people and retaining people? And that one common thing was we had to change the way we were bringing people in, and it started with our job descriptions, because we understand people are looking for certain specific things. It's not just about the money, because we all have been professional enough to know we can make money, but now the flexibility, the time outside of work and everything else that goes with that is as important now, because it's a lifestyle that we've all got accustomed to over a couple of years. And I don't see that changing. I see that's become the new norm, to be honest. I just want to touch bases on that.
And I wanted to add to that, James, on the recruiting side, as a manager looking for people, it used to be we're looking for the best people around the Phoenix office, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now we can scour the entire country to find the best across the country. That's a game changer right there for everybody on this call right here. You have a lot more talent pool to bring in for recruiting. It has changed that a lot.
Absolutely. And I say that as someone who's worked remotely for 3.5 years now. I technically work out of Phoenix, even though I'm here in Minnesota. It's been tremendous for me to have that opportunity because, and this also goes to our company culture, I realize that I'm fortunate to have a company with such amazing remote culture and culture in general, but still feeling like I'm part of the team. Right. And that's where some people really need to feel that office feel. And I get it. I miss it sometimes. I won't lie. But how do we balance everything? So with that, we've got 2 poll questions that we're going to launch back to back. The first one, what's going to take priority? Should it be retention or should it be recruiting? Or are they equally important? We'll let this one go. As James has mentioned, when we're recruiting, change our job descriptions. Talk more about the culture, talk more about remote, talk more about training opportunities. These are things people want to do. I've seen it before on LinkedIn, and maybe I read it in a book. You should never go for a job where your skills match the job description perfectly, right? That's not going to give you room to grow. So having a firm that promotes that internal learning through training or those opportunities to push you out of your comfort zone is going to be more rewarding. And as we were seeing in the chat here, and kudos to you on your comment, James, that flexibility has become just as important as the dollar amount. And I agree with that. And we're seeing in the chat here, retention is bigger than recruiting, but both are equally important. So interesting question there.
Jason, I want to tackle this question from Nick.
Yeah.
With remote work becoming the default, do you have a pulse on what companies are doing to support remote work? We have implemented in Citrix, however, we are struggling to get the performance to a comparable level as a local install of Civil 3D. Do you see other solutions for supporting remote work in the industry? So for me, on the production side and stuff, I've seen people use a wide variety of different stuff. I mean, they've used Dropbox, they've used BIM, they used Citrix, they use all kinds of other stuff, maybe just remote desktop login, was it log me in or something like that. And those, not always the best case. You have to definitely look into your environment, piece it out, like what is going to work for your company. And the ones that are switching to the Autodesk Construction Cloud version with a local deployment of Civil 3D has been overwhelming the better option right now for the people I've seen. I've seen some other people take different approaches and it's worked out good for them. So it just depends on, company culture, that investment. They definitely have to do the research and get all the different options lined up in front of them and piece that together for them.
That's a great comment. And some of this is really expensive to do, right? And I don't think a lot of people realize the investment and that challenge in making that decision on how to support those remote people. We've got solutions like Panzura, and there's the Autodesk Construction Cloud, and there's, other ways you can do it through Citrix and Dropbox and remote desktop. There's all sorts of different ways, but that investment and that decision is pretty heavy. And I think that goes towards maybe a piece of that culture that isn't necessarily talked about. It is a huge decision for a company to allow that and support that. Would you agree with that, Terry?
Yes, absolutely. And so anytime we've worked with several clients that are using virtual machines and connecting licenses, remote desktop through connecting their computers through computers on site, and it always seems the slower of the solutions that we run into. So, Panzura, cloud-based system, BIM, Misune's another one. There's the Microsoft version as well. And then when you can have a local deployment or the software launching from your local machine, even if you're pulling data, project data from the cloud, your system's going to run a lot faster. It's going to be more efficient. And so, from my experience, anytime we're dealing with virtual machines, it's like Citrix and some of these other ones, it's always been an issue with speed. And, they're sending visuals, or it's the processing's done on the local machine and they're sending the screen, the image. And so panning, zooming, just moving around has always been an issue, especially with our graphic intensive software.
And as our software moves away from just lines and text, as we've been used to in AutoCAD, our Revit, our Civil 3D, our InfraWorks, everything is getting more complex. So that makes the whole remote thing a little harder. If we were just working on Word documents and spreadsheets, it would be a different story. But here, when we focus on our AEC customers, that challenge it's real, and that's definitely part of that culture. So before we switch into culture here, we're going to launch another poll to talk about what's a important consideration here. And as we go into this, I'm actually going to send this question to James. How do you define company culture? You've been with ATG for 10 years now, and you deal with a lot of big companies that we don't necessarily talk to. What are you seeing out there trending in culture that has made you think, dang, that's a cool idea?
Well, I mean, I kind of look at it from both sides, from what ATG is doing and what I'm hearing from other customers. I think, I'm not think the word comes to my mind is personable. It's people are in touch with their staff to the point where, I mean, I'm seeing customers or people in leadership knowing they staff members' kids' birthdays are. I think things are just tight. It's a culture way that you just feel more appreciated. And by feeling appreciated, it just you want to work more. You don't want to shut it down at 5 o'clock, or if it's that last phone call and you just debate, what should I do tomorrow? You want to make that call because you understand the culture around that and what you're feeling from your leadership team. Now, if you're not feeling that, you're watching the clock at this point in your career. When it's time to shut it down, you shut it down. And most of us who don't is because we have a connection with someone in an organization that we want to be better and we want to make that extra step for them or her. And so that's kind of what a lot of things that I see from my role and the folks that I'm talking to, because again, all these discussions we have, believe it or not, I'm having them just being full transparent, and I think it's important. I mean, and the ones that's not, because they don't answer after 5 o'clock or whatever time it is. But the ones that do, it's because someone in the organization has touched them and touched him in a way, or him or her in a way that they just want to go. They want to go beyond the call of duty, so to speak. And that's saying what we do at ATG. I think all of our leadership folks are like Rob's and his team. Everybody's super close. You make a connection. It's impactful, and it just kind of rubs off on everyone else as part of the team. So that's just kind of a little bit of my 2 cents of what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, and it's important. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of things come up in the chat that's talking along those lines as well. But just from my personal experience, that's kind of my take on that one.
That's fantastic, James. And I want to point out a comment in the chat from Brian Weeks, one of my favorite teammates, even though we don't work on the same team. So he's got a comment here about learning to work remotely. So he says, learning to work remotely as a professional is also a hurdle for recent graduates because we've been ingrained, in all of our life that you've got to work in a firm. If you don't work in a firm, you're not productive and you're not professional, right? And there has been a sort of stigma for remote work, especially during these times where it's all, sweatpants and the button up only on the top, that type of thing. So he says, trying to convince architects and engineers to come work for a remote company is very difficult because of the mindset. And that's where that culture that James mentioned can play a role in that, to make you feel welcome, to make you feel like you're a part of the team. Now, Rob, you lead our civil team, which is arguably one of our biggest teams. How has this, made you think about your role as a leader and a director here at the firm?
Yeah, I love the, did you share the results on this one? I would, because I'm surprised on it. Not surprised, but relieved to see that culture. That was hands down, like people want to be happy where they work. And I would especially say, I believe Terry made this comment, or James made the comment a while ago about we're working remote, right? We need to connect. We need to feel connected, and that can, and it's not going to change. We're going to continue to be remote. A lot of our, in fact, my entire team is spread out all across the country, but we all feel connected, and we have to do intentional things to do that. Just get on a Zoom chat, get to know each other, make corny jokes, whatever you need to do to feel together as a team. That's how to build that company culture, even though you rarely even see each other. And that's a big part of the culture, I think. And that's what I'm very proud to have the team that we have. And I hope others see that too, is you're starting to get people outside of your direct organization, but remote. Build that connection, build that culture. And that's very important.
I mean, yeah, like even on our account manager side, I mean, some Fridays we had those short afternoons or that late afternoon, we do a remote happy hour session where everyone shuts it down. We just get on the call like we on right now, and just people, pets, children, you can see them interacting, just being themselves, and you can sign in and log up whenever you want. It's just an opportunity for us to really have that dialogue, just have some type of connection. Because I think when we talk about remote, we got to really dive into that. What is remote? Everyone from remote may be differently. Is remote for full time? Is remote, but then is a hybrid way of being remote where you still go in the office? So there's a lot of levels when you talk about remote. I think that needs to be defined for when those folks are looking for that culture, so they understand what that really looks like for them and how it's going to impact them, him or her, so to speak. But let's be creative with this technology that we have out there. There's so many different things that we could be doing. I hear customers on my construction side, they have a poker day, they do a remote. It's just fun. They just doing things, or they just having some interaction and being able to kind of have that connection like we're having right now with everyone on this call. So I just hope, everyone starts to figure out that this is definitely not temporarily. We have to change the way we're doing things, and we have to be more creative. And the technology out there can help us have some type of connection. If we're not in the same office or the same state, utilize it because you start to feel that connection and what I mentioned earlier. And now you kind of want to go a little bit above and beyond than what you typically would do from a 9-to-5 perspective.
Yeah, and wanted to add to that, one thing you said that really stuck was you're not watching the clock if you enjoy where you work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just a great way to put it, because if you don't, you're watching that clock. Wait, when's 5 o'clock? I'm out of here.
Yeah.
But one thing that's really stuck out with me on the results of that poll is money was kind of a low factor in there. You would think, well, we come to work for money, but what I've seen is if money is your key motivator, you're probably going to bounce around to different companies because you can always look and negotiate for more money. But if you really like where you work and the culture's there, that's your priority, and you're going to stick around a lot more. So that was interesting to see that others had that take as well. And I've seen some of the comments in here too about that.
Absolutely.
I know a few people who have been money hungry, and they're on their 6th job in 2 years.
Right.
So obviously they haven't found the right culture, as we're saying, to make them want to stay.
And to be fair, let's a lot of this great resignation is driven by other industries where the pay isn't fair. Hospitality and restaurants and bars. Their pay hasn't been as stable or as steady as we have here in the AEC industry, and we should be thankful for that. But there certainly has been still some big moves, and not all of it is dollar driven. So it's very interesting here. We've got another poll question talking about working remote and working in the office and working hybrid. So we're going a little out of order here, but what do you prefer? Do you like working from home? Does it work for you? Because it doesn't work for everybody, right? Do you want to go back to the office? Are you in the office already? Or do you like to mix it up, the hybrid? There was some stuff I saw online earlier this week where an advertising firm in Canada had made some posters that were essentially making fun of remote work, saying, do you miss your sweatpants yet? Or do you realize your dog misses you? Some of those things that are just insulting to me. As I work from home, I am wearing regular pants, by the way, but my dog is in the room, which I get to appreciate, right? So this poll question is pretty interesting. I'm going to share the results here. A lot of people like the hybrid. We all learn differently. We all respond differently when it comes to our professional lives, and being able to be in the same room and do fist bumps and high fives is certainly a big part of culture. So looks like a lot of people still want that, but they like the flexibility that home can provide. Speaking of flexibility from home, now I know everyone on this call has sent me emails with way too late at night or way too early in the morning. But when it comes to flexibility, Jeff, how do you balance? You're a father of 3 wonderful kids. How do you balance all the work that you do and all the calls that you have to take with family and everything? How is that working for you?
This is a good question for Jeff right now because he's playing Mr. Mom at home right now.
I am playing Mr. Mom. Wife's in Universal right now with my son. So this is actually really good for me. And to say, I need to say this correctly, because I work in a company that allows me to do this. I work for a boss who allows me to do this. So it works good. So during my normal time frame, I try to get done as much as possible in my work day. However, there might be some times, I'm going to have to go get kids off the bus or go to, the high school and pick up kids and bring them home. Or, my daughter rides horses at a farm and we go there once a week, so I have to go different places here and there all time throughout the week. I take people where they need to go and come back. And then once my youngest goes to bed, which is about 8, I'm coming back on most of the time. Try to get that extra stuff that I didn't get done during the day done, or start working for the rest of the week. And I'm guilty. I'm one of the ones who send you stuff late at night. So it's just a way for me to get all my work done if I don't get it done during the day.
Right. And I think that's really important, right? Because I'm different. I have to be at my desk before 8 o'clock every day, and I usually shut down about 5:30 or 6, and I will still check emails, throughout the night, but I rarely come back into my office after hours because I'm not in that same mindset. And I could probably change it if I wanted to. And that's where I'm thankful to work where we work, is that, we support all sorts of time zones and stuff. So that works well. I love this comment from Angie in the chat. Says, I feel like I'm at church and thinking all the people in management that need to hear this sermon instead of myself. Thanks for that, Angie. That's one of those things. That's why we're having this conversation, right? We want you to leave with some talking points to let you know that you're not alone. Or if you've got some cool stuff that your firm is doing that you think may be beneficial to everybody else, share it. We love to talk about it. We love to share this because we are in a niche. even though it doesn't seem like a niche. We've got a lot of familiar names on our participant list, and this is great to see because we're representing the whole U.S. From West Coast to East Coast. So it's exciting to see what's going on.
Yeah, and Jason, I wanted to bring up, maybe this is something to ask. It's not a poll question, but just openly, like, what are some of those cultural pillars that the people have seen successful adding to the company that does keep people around, that makes you excited to go to work, and just kind of open it up there?
Is it a Zoom happy hour? Is it whatever else? I'm looking around my room here. I've seen so many cool things that ATG had sent us as remote employees, from blankets and coolers and koozies and glasses and stuff.
Absolutely.
What's your firm doing? There is a whole lot of stuff in the chat to get caught up on. I see a couple things about happy hour. I look out for that invite this Friday, James.
Yes.
Every other Friday, not this
Yeah.
one. You missed every other
Okay.
Friday.
We're overdue for an internal happy hour.
Yes.
And with
yeah,
that, go ahead, Rob.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Jeff mentioned something earlier just about ATG in general, and I thought this was pretty insightful, but just about being able to go to Scott Landers directly. Talk
Oh
about
yeah.
bring
Yeah.
that up.
So, I mean, we're fortunate enough where, I mean, we can go up to the upper ups and have a conversation with them. I mean, like Scott, I mean, Chris, Ben, I mean, we can go to them, call them and chat them and anything, and they'll respond and talk to us as a normal person, right? Heck, Ben talked to me about my son, who's an Eagle Scout, because he has that relationship with Eagle Scouts. So we talked about that for a half hour. So, I mean, that's cool to have that kind of conversation with the owners and the principals of a company. Not every company is fortunate enough to have that. So to me, I think it's a really good part of our culture, is being connected to our employees and other people. So
Yeah, I go back to that connection I mentioned earlier too, Jeff. I mean, that's important. But leadership has to, at some point, have to understand how valued their employees are and invest in them. And it don't mean financially. We're not looking for enough. I mean, we're just looking for a connection. We are human. We just want some of that family value stuff that you have in your internally home, but you want to feel that at work. And our company has done an exceptional job of creating that path and making sure that we all know our doors are open. So I'm hoping, if folks in leadership is on this call, or once this gets out there, that just make the connection. And when you make that connection with that one individual is going to share with their peers or their colleagues, and then they're going to make another connection. And so it's just going to become an environment of people are being happy because people care. As we see in Jason's cat walk behind them. Look, I said connection, and this cat came on the screen.
Yeah.
So apparently the cat and the dog are in the same room. You got a great connection happening right now. I love it.
I'm surprised she's not trying to destroy everything. So
and how many times in our leadership meeting, my youngest daughter comes up here and sits on my lap and we're having a conversation.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's part of the process now. But Jason, I might be jumping the gun a little bit, but I have like 3 bullet points for company culture. And one of them, are we meeting basic needs? So do we care about not only compensation, but also that workflow structure? Is there room to grow in the company? I mean, that's a big step. Like, people want to see, okay, I'm here day-to-day drafter or whatever. How can I move forward in my career? So they want to see that. The second thing is, do we respect the dignity of the individual? And this is kind of coming through the process as, okay, one person shouldn't be the main person of the whole company. It should be the group of the people. It should be the people that are in there working. So not one person should be more important than the other, and kind of create that environment where, they have freedom to be innovative and improve in what they do. So that's kind of the situation on that one. And do we give people something to aspire to? So down farther in the road, can they get to where they want to go in their next career stage at that company? also as a person, right? Might be different shifts in my home life as well. Can I get there as well just by staying at my company? And I think those three things are very important to a company culture.
Absolutely. And there's a question here in the chat about how many companies have that open door policy where employees can let principals know about their needs to be happier at work. And if there are principals or leaders on this call and you don't have that policy, you're probably on the wrong negative side of this whole thing that's going on here. It doesn't take much. And like Jeff had mentioned and Rob had mentioned, we're all thankful that we have that open door policy here. Hey, by the way, leadership, we want to have a town hall and talk about this. Guess what? We're doing it, right? We've had these conversations and we have that blessing to have a culture like that. So this is where firms can shift their culture. So as we, wrap up, to be respectful of your time today, our final thoughts, right? I'm looking at our notes here and this is the good time to make adjustments. How are you going to retain your people and how are you going to attract new people? We want this to be a takeaway. And I love this quote. I think, Rob, you wrote this, so I'll give you full credit. If people are leaving companies, be the company they want to come to, right? Think about that a little bit. What does that mean? Do you want to work remote? Do you want to have a hybrid, have a great office where people want to go? Do you want to make changes? Do you want to support Citrix and Panzer and all the fancy hardware and software that goes into providing people with the ultimate work from home experience? It's an interesting time for sure. I want to thank everybody who's joined us today. Rob, Terry, James, Jeff, Justin, of course, behind the scenes, and all of our marketing team at ATG. So as we start to wrap up, there's still a lot of things in the chat that we want to talk about. So I'm going to pitch this over to Terry to talk about some of the cultural improvements that firms can make. So one of the coolest things that we do here at ATG is that your birthday is a holiday, right? What other things have you seen that would be a cultural benefit that might keep people around?
Yeah, thank you. So really, I really enjoy just the team building, being able to get together on certain holidays, or even, we have a one team event that was awesome. Everybody got to get together and just make those connections. And I think that's important. But, I think even the small things matter, donuts, happy hour, stuff like that. Just that they don't cost much, but it makes you feel like they're thinking of you. You want to be part of an organization that you feel connected with. And I think that there's a ton of small things that organizations can engage in just to make that culture stronger. Make people make those connections, make people feel comfortable with each other. But again, our one team event, our holiday events, getting together since we are remote, and remote does cause some issues as well. And, being able to just get together as a team, I think is really important.
Absolutely.
And get together as a team could be in person, but it could also be in Zoom. I mean, how many times have
Absolutely.
Terry, you and I have done Zoom chats all the time together, and some of it's catching up on projects. Some of it is just honestly mental health of how we're doing. I mean, that's a good check-in with their people. Just because you're remote doesn't mean you don't have to check in on people.
Right.
I
And I'll
know.
Yeah,
say this too,
intentional.
and don't leave that up to your leadership. There's folks on this town hall that you're a CAD manager or bill manager or whatever your role is. If you want that, be the person to initiate that and then allow it to grow. Don't wait for someone else to do it. We all, I mean, some of you guys have Zoom, Microsoft Office, or Teams you use. Start your own. Say, hey, I'm doing a happy hour. Invite to all users and see who shows up. Or, hey, I'm doing this. Just whatever you want to call it. Just some type of interaction, but don't wait for somebody to do it. You be that person or that individual to kind of take that first step and allow it to grow. Because some people are probably just waiting for somebody to kick it off. Some people are just waiting for the leadership has it. Well, you know what? Let's just take this on my own. I'm gonna initiate it and allow it to grow. And then you started seeing how important it is for people. And I'll leave you with this as well as we wrapping up. For For those of you who are looking for great employees that want to really work and go beyond, allow them to be present with their families. They will do way more than you think on the production side. Give them the flexibility to be present in their lives. They will then in return go above and beyond the call of duty in their career and their professional career, and it will impact those companies in ways that they never done before, and it didn't cost you anything. Only thing it cost you was an opportunity to be flexible and to allow them to be present in their lives with their families as well as their employers or the colleagues. And I'll leave you with that.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
James.
thank you.
Thanks, James.
A good
I
one.
wanted
Thanks,
to
James.
want to just leave on this too, the note of the Great Reset. It's a time for all of us to kind of rethink where we're at and rethink with the way the world we're in right now. I will say this. We got our whole company together in New Orleans just recently. Can you imagine the logistics and the cost and just everything getting that together? It was tough. And I was like, why are we doing this? But I'll tell you, it was amazing. Everybody's on there. We got to see each other in person, and it makes all the difference in the world. So for the leaders on the call, it's worth it. It's worth it getting to people. And I've even heard that from employees that they didn't quite get it. They felt kind of alone until they saw other people that do what they do. And now they get it. They're full on in. I think you can see the same with your companies as well. I'll leave it at that.
That's exactly it. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, everybody, and take care out there. We'll see you again
Yes.
soon.
Take care.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
guys. Thank you, Zon.
Guys.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe and check out some of the other content on our channel.